Finally got a video of this happening. The whole reason I have this car is because I'm trying to fix this issue. It's my dad's car. He always tells me this is what happens when he starts it. But I've never gotten it to occur. But this morning, sure enough, I started the car and after a few seconds it beeped at me and power says steering fault. And I've got no steering. First step in the procedure is to lock the steering wheel in the forward position. Just put a plastic bucket under it, raise the seat a little bit just to hold it there. And then you got to take off the lower steering shaft cover. It's got little plastic hand nuts on there. Remove the cover and then you got to take out the one bolt that's here. I believe it's a 10 millimeter. Procedure specifies that you replace it. I would do that if you can. Then you want to remove the lower shaft seal. You have to pull the lower steering shaft off of it, and you see it plunges like this. And you just pull it off and put it to the side like that. Gotta have a tool. You have one of these? 2 flathead screwdrivers together.
So what are you removing right now?
I think it calls them the splash shields. It even wants us to remove the lower ones on both sides, but Yep. Maybe that's why it said take off the lower shields. Here's the U-bracket for the exhaust. And then there's these 2 little bracket bolts there. I'm going to torch these guys. That goes down to here. This one's shot, so I'm replacing it. I'm going to take those exhaust bolts off up there as well, too. So I can get on top of it a little bit. Now you're going to take off the 2 bolts that hold on the shield. You can see one right there. And then there's another, which is there. Whoa. All right. Try to get this back one now. And then take that out and then undo the electrical connectors. All right, there's 2 connectors you gotta pull off the power steering, not 3. There's 2, and they got that big fat one there, and that guy there. There's a 3rd, but it goes right to the rack. So this guy here, I unplugged it, but it goes right into itself. So there's no point. So I'll be clear, in this order, you've got to take out the roll restrictor bolt, which is the bolt that's up here. You could probably take that one out too, but I'd say take this one out because it goes into the subframe. And then support the rear of the subframe with a jack, like I'm doing right here. Supported. 4 subframe bolts back here, and there's 2 nuts. I had to take one of these screws out to help pull the shield back. That's probably why it said to pull it off earlier. Make sure you don't pull it all the way out. I'm only hitting it with the impact to break it loose. Alright, here we go. Okay. Take it off a few more threads. There we go, the nut's at the bottom of the threads now. And the reason we're loosening them is because the whole subframe, to pull this rack out, it drops it like that. So the whole thing goes down like that, and then you unbolt it and you slide the rack out. You're not actually dropping the subframe. We're going to drop the rear of the subframe down now. I'm going to try to stay clear of it in case something goes wrong. It needs to be down 3, the rear goes down 3 inches. I'm going to drop a little bit. I might measure it to make sure we don't drop it too far. I don't want to know what would happen if we did that. Alright, got it down some. It's only down about an inch right now. And then I'm taking a 2x4 and just putting it in between the frame and the subframe and just prying it like that. Just give it a little nudge. The problem is the inner bolt here. I can't get to it really. I can get a wrench on it, but I can't turn it. Let's try it again. Yeah, that's better. They're not particularly tight, they're in rubber. Okay, here it is. Oops! Oh jeez, clumsy. Got a washer on it. They actually look great. They look great, so that's the inner bolt. Let's go to the other side. The rack feels completely loose now. Don't fall, don't fall. You gotta kind of twist it. Unfortunately, the camera died when we got it all the way out, but you saw the important bits. We got it next to the new reman rack here. It's an A1 Cardone. It's got the typical A1 Cardone black paint all over it. It came with a number of warnings. So the one here is saying that the steering rack must be centered with the steering wheel. I gotta look in the manual. It says follow the manufacturer's procedure on that, so I gotta look that up. And oh, you gotta transfer the outer tie rods. So here are the flux pipes. Now I kind of screwed this up because I guess their flanges are different design. One uses a gasket. The new one, this is kind of a flat flange. So I ordered these gaskets, these Velcro gaskets. There's one of the old ones, but it doesn't look like they will go in. As you can see, this old one fit right in that groove there. So probably gonna have to go buy some just standard flange gaskets for those. This is the U-clamp that goes into this factory bracket here. I went to the parts store and matched it with a clamp, so it's the equivalent of a 2.5 inch clamp. And so you'll just throw this away and just use that in the nuts, and that'll replace that. There's the 3 bolts we got to put back in, and they should be torqued to 79 foot-pounds. All right, so repair update. Tighten up the bolts on the rack. So now we're going to torque up the 4 subframe nuts. 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts back here. Got the 2 bolts back there, 2 bolts back there, and then these 2 big nuts. Then you're going to put in the roll restrictor bolt. Then you're going to button up the electrical connectors. I still got to connect those. And then you're going to put the aluminum cover back on it and tighten those bolts. Alright, so I've got the exhaust bracket bolts and U-clamp bolts in. So as I was saying before, the service manual said to take out the U-clamp bolts and these bolts up here, but I'm still not entirely sure that's necessary. I think the issue is that maybe when you're pulling this out, it hits this. That's kind of what it looks like to me right now. Alright, car's running and driving now. No more power steering warnings. All I had to do was get the tie rods in. Couldn't show any of that, unfortunately. I had to get it done ASAP to get it over to the shop. One of the biggest downsides of this job is that you need to have the computer flashed on the power steering rack. There's no guarantee it's going to work when you plug it in for the first time. Big warning comes in the box that says it must be flashed to the vehicle. Unfortunately, I don't have the forward scan tool. I planned on towing it if that was going to have to be the case, but when I got it all buttoned up, started up the first time, got me no warning messages. I had no problem steering it, so I took it over to the Ford dealer, had them flash the module, which actually turned out to be up to date, but needed to have the vehicle ID put in. So I don't know if that was critical or not. So one of the other things I didn't mention, you gotta get the lower steering shaft back on. I haven't put the cover on yet, but I bolted the shaft in. Make sure you put the boot in first. You gotta make sure that the inner part of the boot is flush over the sleeve of the rack. This bolt gets torqued to 177 inch-pounds, and a warning came with the rack that you need to make sure it's centered before you install it. And as long as the wheels are mostly center, you can't screw it up because the bolt goes through a notch cut in the top of the shaft in the rack. Let's see what else. For all you have the V6. As far as I can tell, the only difference in the manual is that it says to remove the exhaust flexible pipe, and it didn't say to remove the exhaust flexible pipe like U-clamp and bracket. It only said remove the pipe. So I don't know what that entails. Some of you may have been wondering why the heck I didn't take it in for the recall. Well, the 2010 model doesn't have a recall for the power steering. The 11 and 12 did. So that sucked. When I was talking to the shop that quoted it, he said it's a real shame that these weren't recalled for that steering, just because it's so expensive to replace. So this may only be helpful for you guys out there with 2010s. But theoretically, this video should be relevant for 10, 11, and 12s. Alright, let's see if I can think of anything else. I think that's about it. Oh, one more thing that I wish I had noticed before. With the hood open, it appears that there's a little more access than I thought, at least with the 4-cylinder. So you can actually see the some of the rack bolts in the center of the screen there. Some of those are a little tricky to get a torque wrench on. You might be able to have better luck with it through here. And as well as those electrical connectors. That's all for now.